Over the years, I've been wanting to turn this into a business. I formed my LLC. I want to grow. Or my week for the business is usually Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Right. You're not going to hit a ballpark or find the silver bullet in the first week, month, or even quarter of maybe testing something. I personally like being in control because I can always fix it or make it better. You could get a helper, try to double your production on those 3 days.
Lawn care versus the projects. It seems that the projects make way more money.
I
Right.
don't like debt. I like sleeping well at night and not having to worry. We just bought our seventh truck for $8,600. How many hours out of those 72 hours each week is this piece of equipment actually going to be used?
Companies have grown fast, but they've wanted the big shiny truck and stuff. And then they're in so much debt that they end up failing because they owe $120,000 on a pickup truck. Trying to find better systems or how to implement systems.
Us as entrepreneurs, like we want to have freedom,
Right.
we want control. All right, so Gary, thank you for coming on. So maybe give us a quick snippet of like where you're at in business and how can I help?
I actually I do all my landscaping, tree trimming, mowing part time. I work a full time job. I'm actually a zookeeper. That's my full time job. Over the years, I've been wanting to turn this into a business because I've always kind of treated it like a second job or kind of like an independent contractor type thing. I got in contact with a property maintenance company, and I've been doing jobs for them that they either can't handle or don't want to do. That's been very, very good up until this winter, just before Christmas. Things slowed way down. It didn't hurt me financially overall with what I'm trying to do. It did, because I was like, oh, and it kind of made me step back and say, I can't rely on like subcontracting gig to help me kind of build this business. It needs to be able to stand on its own. Even if it's going to continue to be part time, it still needs to be structured so I can make a profit and so I can keep things rolling, and sometimes buying new equipment, that sort of thing. And when I had that turn over Christmas, I kind of opened up my eyes to be like, hey, I need to really really step into this. Just after Christmas, I formed my LLC and got all my business licenses and everything in order. In that process, I actually had another property. Well, it's more of a landscaping company, but they do subcontracting as well. And they contacted me and asked me if I would want to work with them and do some jobs for them. I started getting jobs from them, and that's been pretty good. It's been steady. I have to do more estimates and things for them. And then they contact me back and let me know what they have for work. Like if something gets approved, then they'll let me know, hey, this is approved. The issues that I'm having is I really don't. I also started doing some lawn care on one of the apps just to kind of fill in before I had this other landscaping company contact me. So I have a few clients on there. It's almost like working for a company, and I already do that. I want this to be something that stands on its own. So I guess with where I'm at right now, I want to grow, and I want to be able to have this business grow my family into the future and be able to be something when I retire or when I want to not have to work at my normal job anymore, that this can fill in and be lucrative for us. My week for the business is usually Saturday, Sunday, Monday are the days that I can work solely on the business. Last year, I think I probably did around 25,000 gross, and net probably about 15. I would like to scale that up, but still stay a sole operator, maybe with a part-time person helping going into this next year. But this next year, I would like to try to grow the business to at least 50,000.
First off, I think that's amazing that you're working a full-time job and then working 3 days a week to build this thing. So I give you a applause for that. So that's amazing. Like you're working hard. Like there's no shortage of your work ethic at all. through that. So I hear what you're saying as far as like being at the whim of these other contractors or other companies. Us personally, we have actually done subcontracting work. And to be honest, I like being in control. That's why I don't work a job. That's why I don't, drink alcohol. That I don't do a lot of stuff because I want to be in control of my body and my thoughts and the business. And so, with that being said, like when you are getting jobs from like apps or like, I know there's some websites out there that they'll just like send you leads and stuff like that. You're not always in control because you can't control the lead mechanisms. You can't, you're just kind of again at the whim of them. And so I think to build like a sustainable business that you're in control of, maybe start to shift over to like you doing some of the marketing, instead of getting the leads from these other companies or other businesses as like subcontracting. Um, the good part about that is if it's not working, you're in control and you can fix it. The bad part about it is there's probably some learning that comes with it, right? You're not going to hit a ballpark or find the silver bullet in the first week, month, or even quarter of maybe testing something.
Right.
Um, but again, I personally like being in control because I can always fix it or make it better. That's why I'll give you a perfect example of this. There was a company previously that used the H2B program where they would bring like, foreigners over to come and work for the summertime. It was a government program. And during COVID, they shut it down. They didn't allow people to come inside, obviously, of the United States and stuff. And so again, they did not have control, and they lost like half of their business. They were doing like millions of dollars, but like again, they relied on a government program, the H2B program, for their workers. And so I was like, well, I never want to be in that predicament. Like, well, I wasn't in the predicament, but I learned from them, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to have to rely on the government or this program that they could turn it off like that, and me be like, oh my goodness, now I got to scramble, to find like workers or US workers, per se. So we've always just hired locally. So as far as that goes, I think you getting a part-time helper for like the 3 days a week will be awesome because doing like that 50, or even if you're up, can push that up to like 65 or 70,000. What'll allow you to do is you'll be able to, at that point, you could probably shift over to more of a full time as long as you can cover your expenses and everything. You basically run the business 5 days a week by yourself. You probably at that point don't need a helper unless you're trying to grow even more. But I think that's a good approach. Like you're doing it right. You're doing it part time. You could get a helper, try to double your production on those 3 days to get it up to a point where you're doing like 50 plus K, and then you will feel more confident making that shift over.
One of the problems, one of the areas that I'm kind of running into is, I watched a lot of your videos. I watch, some of the other guys, Mike Andes and Keith Kalfas and those guys. I guess my issue right now is that I'm trying to figure out where I should focus more of my time. If I should, because after looking at it down here, at least where I'm at, what I like to do, what I'm good at, and what seems to be coming in most of the time is small to medium tree trimming, um, landscaping, those type of jobs where it's a project, but not a huge project. It might be a couple days, not a couple weeks or a month. And those jobs make up a lot of the money that I'm making now. And looking at lawn care, I tried to add that in because I like doing lawn care, but having just the 3 days a week lawn care versus the projects, it seems that the projects make way more money. So I'm wondering if my focus in marketing should be pushed towards tree trimming, landscaping instead of the lawn care.
That's a really good question because you're condensed for time, right? So like
Right.
you only have those 3 days. I agree with you. Those projects will make you more money. The problem with that is they're typically one-time jobs, if I'm correct, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So the problem with that is they're not recurring. Now that we have established our main location and now we have a second location, I'm focused on recurring revenue because For example, last year at our main location, we did 550,000. If we don't do anything else and we don't send another door hanger out this year, we're going to start roughly around 550K for the year.
Right.
So I don't have to go out and resell jobs every year. There's security in it. It does better in a downturn market, with the recurring. But you can make a lot of money with projects. So I think if you're doing it part-time while you're still working a full-time job and you don't need to rely on it, the projects make more sense to me. Because why? You only have 72 hours for those 3 days to make as much money as possible to stack away to where when you do want to make the switch and actually flip over, you've got a little bit of a nest egg to be like, all right, let's take $5,000 or $10,000 and like pump out some flyers or hire some people. But yeah, just be mindful of that, the recurring versus the one-time projects. You will make typically more money on the one-time projects. It's just from a long-term sustainability standpoint, I believe to build more of like a recurring business. Now we still do one-time projects. I would say we're about 80 to 85% recurring.
What I've been trying to do is utilize being out on these jobs that I'm subcontracting for, being able to utilize that as a marketing strategy as I go. So while I'm out on these jobs, if I can, do door hangers or postcards or whatever on the houses around the area where I'm already working. And then also I want to get some decals for my vehicle, that sort of thing. So that way, when I'm there, it's kind of advertising for me while I'm being paid to do another job.
I'd say door hangers will help, get at the beginning the 5 rounds. And then when you do get some cash, I highly, highly recommend getting the truck logos on there because that's a one-time fee and it should last 4 to 5 years.
What I'm running into right now is because I use my vehicle that I drive daily and back and forth to work also as my work vehicle. The problem is it's almost paid for. I know I need something bigger because it's just a Jeep Compass. So I have a hard time fitting all my equipment in it. I can't really tow anything with it if I need to do a trailer. So I've had to turn down bigger jobs that were offered to me. I couldn't get the material off site. I couldn't get, some of my equipment there or rent things that I needed to be able to get them there. So I'm trying to figure out knowing that it's a vehicle that I use daily and for jobs, if I should just save a little money in the business and buy something because I'm good mechanically, buy something that maybe needs a little bit of work, but that's completely paid for, or if I should finance a vehicle knowing that it needs to be a good enough vehicle that it can get me to and from my other job and deal with all the stuff I need to in the business.
You're talking to somebody who built military lawn cuts completely debt free. So I
Right,
don't like debt. I like sleeping well at night and not having to worry. I'm a big component on letting the business pay for the stuff you need.
right,
Especially in the beginning when you're trying to figure out the proof of concept to see if it even works. Clearly it works for you. You guys have $25,000 that you made last year, so like it's there and you netted, X amount of dollars, but like let that money, I'd be okay with you letting that money buy a 3, 4, $5,000 truck that you could go out, maybe tinker a little bit, get it going good and use that. Like that makes sense to me. Going out and getting a lease truck or going into debt and getting a nice one. I never did that. I even today, like we just bought our seventh truck for $8,600. It's a 2014, has 149,000 miles on it. Just got its logos on it, putting the ramp on it. So like, and that'll get better over time. We don't buy that old and used of the trucks like as we grow. But in the beginning, like, yeah, just like letting the business basically pay for that. The other thing I would say too with equipment, a lot of people, I try to figure out what the demand is. I can speak from experience with our area down here in Texas. There's HOA communities everywhere, right?
that's the way
So
it is
like,
here too.
so they need mowing, they need bush and weed pulling, right? They're gonna need mulch, bat and it's typically not like yards of mulch jobs. It's typically
Right.
like, hey, 10 or 15 bags, front beds, that's it. So we know if the HOA is going to come and write out tickets, those are the three things they're going to look for. Are there weeds in the lawn? Is the grass cut? How does the bushes look up in front? And so that's what we focus on. Not so much the large paver patio jobs or like really tall tree trimming, because that stuff you need trailers and you need big equipment and all that costs money. And so not to say that you shouldn't take those jobs on. I think if you like that area, maybe rent if possible that type of equipment. If you need a chainsaw, rent it for the day. You can go to Home Depot and I think it's like, I don't know, $50 for 4 hours or something. Or maybe it's like $50 for the whole day. But like I would just communicate that before you go out and buy bigger equipment or tools that you're going to need, really ask yourself, I have 3 days a week to use this piece of equipment. How many hours out of those 72 hours each week is this piece of equipment actually going to be used? Because if we're
Right.
buying a big chainsaw for this one tree trimming job that we just booked, but we don't get another tree trimming job for 2 more months, that's not a good that's not where I would want to put the money for asset utilization to make more money. A lot of people go down this spiral of like, oh, I need a trailer. Oh, I need this big chainsaw. Oh, I need like a sod cutter because we do sod. And it's like, and it, like, or those like grinders that like grind up the ground when you're doing sod and stuff. And it's like, if you're only going to use it once every 2 months, like to me, just rent it. Like it doesn't make sense, you know. Or maybe don't take on those larger jobs and really focus on the demand and the pain points, you know?
Okay, yeah, because we're pretty well set for handheld equipment. That's all paid for. I have several good quality chainsaws. I have a weed eater, a push mower. All that stuff is all paid for. I don't owe anything on any of that. My Jeep is almost paid for. My biggest thing, I guess, is the vehicle aspect, and you kind of hit the nail on the head when you talked about, I've always been the type of person to buy things used because I see the quality in them compared to the money. And I see also in some of the videos we see online where these companies have grown fast, but they've wanted the big shiny truck and stuff. And then they're in so much debt that they end up failing because they owe $120,000 on a pickup truck. So I don't want to be there. I'm trying to be as smart as I can about this. I just want to make sure that I'm kind of going down the right road because I see you guys have done so well. And and obviously it's good to surround yourself with people that have done well for themselves because they know the path. I'm trying to think at this point if we should use a little bit of our savings and buy some of the equipment that we know we're going to need that might be redundant only because I do have older equipment, not buying new stuff, but buying, like, say, I have a weed eater and it's done great, but it's probably not going to last much longer and I don't have a backup. So I was thinking about putting a little bit of money into some backup equipment that I know I use weekly. And then as soon as we get enough money that we feel comfortable buying a vehicle and paying for it outright. And then, like you had said, if I need a trailer, I can rent a trailer. The problem with it right now is I can't even rent a trailer because my Jeep won't pull it. So when I get these jobs where they're like, hey, can you go estimate this, this tree that needs to be cut down? I can do the work, but I'm going to have to pay to have all that stuff hauled away. And then it ends up not covering the cost.
How many tree quotes are you getting typically? And like how many, like have you quoted them before?
Yeah, I usually get, depending, I get, small, medium, and large. A lot of it's palm trees. A lot of it's palm tree trimming. But usually probably 3 a week, that are anywhere between $500 and $2,500 a piece. And then I also, from the other company that I've been working with over the last year that I started with, they usually give me 3 or 4 a day, but it's not necessarily tree trimming. It's a lot of violations, like you were saying. Might be go and mow a lawn or go fix a sprinkler system, or go put in screens in a screen enclosure. But all that stuff pays really well. And if I can get 3 of those jobs a day, then I'm at, $1,500, $2,000 for the weekend,
Right.
which is pretty good. But the only problem is, kind of like you said, I'm not in control of that. So like on Friday night, I'll get, hey, I have some jobs for you this weekend. And then I may or may not get what they are on Friday night. And then Saturday morning, I'll get like, 3 or 4 or 5, which is great, but they'll be all over the place. I still make money because they're chunk jobs and not reoccurring small jobs. Trying to organize that is kind of like herding cats. It's because you get it last minute and you're like, oh, okay, I gotta go this, I gotta go north for this one. Now I gotta go south for this one. I gotta go west for this one. Trying to like organize that. And trying to do my estimates. I started using Copilot a little bit to do estimates. And then I used Novo as my business bank account, and that's able to separate. And I can also send an invoice directly from my checking account. I'm trying to find better systems or how to implement systems to be able to kind of build that into a spot where I can be like, okay, this weekend I have bam, bam, bam. We know what we're going to need. We know where we're going.
When you start to market for yourself and not, be at the whim of these other companies, you can structure your weeks or weekends properly and make sure, like, when you're on the east side of the road or the highway, you're doing those jobs. When you're on the west side, maybe that'll be Saturday. You know what I mean? So I think that'll give you more control. And it just goes back to, like, I mean, us as entrepreneurs, like, we want to have freedom,
Right.
we want control. And, we don't want to be told what to do. We want to be able to make the decisions. And if it's the wrong ones, we will face that and accept it, take ownership of it. And if it's the right ones, we'll obviously learn from that as well. So I think that'll help if you start to like market yourself to help like build that out. Not saying you should cut all that other stuff out, but yeah, I was just curious like how many tree jobs you were getting. So it seems like there's a demand there, right? Initially my thought was like, well, maybe you could get in touch with a company that comes and hauls off the disposal. That way you don't have to. You go
Right.
there, you do the tree trimming and all that stuff. You pay a one-time couple $100 fee. They load it up and haul it off so you don't have to. That would allow you to just bring your chainsaw and ropes, whatever you need, and cut it and head out. So just like thinking outside of the box and just seeing like how we could make it work. I don't think I would stray away from your profit margin. So whether you have the right equipment or not, it's like, hey, this is what the price is. And that other company that's at you're at their whim is like, they either have to conform or find another contractor. But like, hey, this is what makes sense for me to do the job and make a profit with the type of equipment that I have. And if that means that you don't close every job and you only close 25% of your jobs, then that's okay too. I would just hate for somebody like you who's hardworking to go out, buy a ton of this stuff of equipment and like go super into debt. And then it just becomes really stressful. I did want to mention too, because we were talking about equipment earlier. Do you like any type of piece of equipment that you buy? It's really good to run this through your filter of like your mind of no matter what dollar that you pay for. So like let's just say for example, let's just say a $10,000 trailer, whether that's the price or not. Let's say you go out and spend $10,000 on that trailer. So to make that money back of $10,000, you got to figure out what your profit margin is. So in our business, 10 to 20% is probably pretty fair because we have employees. We're not the ones doing the work. You doing it solo, you probably have a better profit margin, So okay, actually you said you made 25,000 last year, and then how much did you take home?
I think it was like 15.
Okay, so 15,000 divided by 25,000. Wow. So that's a 60% profit margin. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. So you probably don't have a lot of overhead and all that stuff. So at 60%, so you would basically need to pull in roughly about $17,000, $18,000 to pay that trailer off. So just under at a 60% margin. So just understand, if you whatever piece of equipment you buy, you can do the math on that and work backwards. So let's just say you bought a $500 steel weed eater, right? Because you need it, and you're using it a ton. So if you do, so you would need to make about $850 top line to make the money back, and then every dollar after that, you're making good money. So you can run that through your filter. Most people don't have a 60% profit margin. Most
Yeah,
people like have a 10 or 20% if they're running a full operation, depending on what it is, if it's mowing.
I
But
was actually I feel blessed and pretty lucky because early on, before I started all this, was when I started kind of watching you and Keith Kalfas and those guys, and I started really paying attention to that. Hey, you got to make sure that your profit margin is where it needs to be because it's a business. You're not just doing this for a friend or whatever. So I right away, as soon as I started working with this first company as a subcontractor, I kept my margins high. And they'd be like, "Hey, we need you to go do this," and I would throw them a quote and be like, "Okay, it's going to be this much," and I kind of crossed my fingers because I was like, I feel like that's too much money. I know it's right for what I'm doing and what I need, but for me, at first I started thinking if I were doing it, like if I were paying somebody to do it, I wouldn't pay that much because I know how to do it. And then I was like, but most of the people that are asking for this done either don't have the time, the equipment, or the want to do it, or they don't know how to do it. So I just threw those numbers out, and they were like, okay, here you go. And so then I stuck with it, and I've just always tried to do everything myself so I could keep that overhead low. And my daughters come and help me now and then, but it's not like having a part-time worker that helps a ton. They just kind of help a little bit. It helps me to give back to the family a little bit, to the kids, and then they take a little bit of work off my plate. But yeah, that's how I've been able to keep it kind of low as far as overhead goes, and I want to continue that, but I want to build. So I was I'm kind of looking to, like you were saying, to see where I should put my money for marketing. I have a website, and but I haven't really delved into the whole Google thing and everything because I feel like my direct marketing right now is better for me than trying to deal with Google and all the stuff on the internet. So I have the website in case somebody asks. I have business cards. And then I was going to try and format some kind of door hanger for lawn mowing, but projects as well. I don't know if that should be two separate things or the same thing. And that's kind of where I'm at. And I want to go into this spring season like really hitting on all eight cylinders and being able to get these jobs. And I mean, last year when spring hit, throughout the entire year until Christmas, I was probably doing, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 different jobs a weekend and making and making good money at it, obviously for just 3 days a week. And that wasn't every weekend. There were weekends that I took off where I had to do other stuff. So that 25,000 gross came from 6 or 7 hard months of working steady 3 days on my days off. So I really feel like we could grow a lot. I just don't want to get stuck in that whole, like you said, that whole like, oh, we spent too much money. And when I look back on it, I'm like, oh, okay, what can we do to make sure that our finances are in order? Because I did spend a lot of that money on willy-nilly stuff that I was like, okay, this year we need to make sure that that money gets saved and gets used only for stuff that we need.
I'm curious that 15,000. So you made 25,000. Were you like paying yourself like a distribution, or
Um,
does that 60%, the 15,000, is that like just part of your take home?
the 15 ended up just being part of just part of take home,
Okay, got it,
because
got it.
at that time we weren't actually a business, so it was just me basically being an independent contractor, just doing almost like doing a second job. And I'm trying to do the 30% rule, 30% for taxes, 30% for the business, and 30% for personal. But I put it all in one account, and then it's separated in the account into different tiers. So I'm hoping by doing that this year and my wife taking care of the finances that we'll be able to show that profit and be able to say, hey, now we have this much money that we know where it went. I bought stuff, everything that we bought with it mostly was business related, gas, materials, small equipment, rental, or like I did pay a couple times for companies to come and pick up debris. And then at the end of the year, I was like, oh, here's what we netted, but where did it go? And it was stuff for the business, but it wasn't stuff that the business absolutely had to have.
Applaud you, absolutely, especially working a full-time job. So just keep focusing on profit when you're giving those quotes. You could do both. You could still do the contracting and you can still do like, you putting flat door hangers out yourself. And then you can
Awesome.
start to build your own little route on one of those days and be in control of it. And so just baby steps, you'll definitely get there. You're doing the right thing and you're definitely thinking through.